Good day, everyone. My name is Sitabile Buthelezi. I'm going to be your presenter for today's lesson. Our main focus will be on reading and viewing under the topic of analyzing the poetry with my grade 10 learners. Introduction. We have the lesson aims under the introduction parts, of which means at the end of this lesson, the learners should be able to understand what is a poem. They should also be able to explain the meaning of poems and list and also define the types of poems that we have in poetry. They should also be able to understand and identify the literary techniques that are used in poetry. They may be even able to create their own poems using the literary techniques. They should also be able to interpret the meaning and the theme of the poem. They should also be able to apply the critical skills to analyze and evaluate the different interpretations of the poem. They should also be able to express their personal opinions and their reaction towards the poems. They should be able to share their feelings towards the poem that they will be reading at that particular time. Lastly, they should be able to evaluate the effectiveness of the poet's use of language and poetic techniques in a poem. Moving on to the next slide, we have the introduction that connects with the prior knowledge and describe the purpose of this lesson. Firstly, as an educator, I will settle my learners so that I can have their attention. I will explain to them that today we will begin getting ready to read poetry, and I will ask them if they know what poetry is. I will ask them to mention the types of poets that they know in order to connect the lesson with their prior knowledge so that they'll be able to understand what we'll be learning about. By so doing, it will be easier for them to relate with the day's lesson. I will also ask them to list the types of poetry they know, of which their answers may include a sonnet poetry, a narrative poetry, a lyric poetry, or even a dramatic poetry. I will explain to learners that reading poetry is different from reading other types of literature. It is different from reading a novel, a drama, or any other types of literatures. I will first ask the learners what is a poem. Uh, then the learners will share their thoughts and ideas. They will come up with the various the definitions of the word poems. The basic answer should be similar to this example here, but as a teacher, I will have to remember that each and every learner will have a different idea about what makes a good poetry, just like everyone has a different taste to music. A poem is an artistic language that tries to affect a reader's feelings or imaginations. The poet does this by carefully choosing the special words and rhyme it to create a special meaning. I will then write their definitions of the word of the word poem on the chalkboard. I will instruct them to take their exercise books and copy these definitions. This shall be done. The way in which I will correct their definitions, I will be adding to what they have already shared with me. I will be correcting them, not just disapproving their answers. After I have introduced the topic of the day to them, we will move to the development of content and connecting with their prior knowledge. I will first read the title of the poem for them and ask what do they think the poem will be about based on the title that I have read. I will discuss their predictions about the poem after I have heard their opinions. I will then play a YouTube video of the poem and ask learners to listen attentively. The playing a YouTube video would help in accommodating learners of diverse learning styles. I will also ask them to read the poem out loud by themselves after watching the YouTube video. This is the poem that we'll be reading and analyzing together with my learners. Its title says Kettle in the Rain, and it was written by Masemura Zimunya. In short, this poem is about a boy who used to head kettles, and after the reading these poems, you can understand that the boy was not happy with his job. He even wished that he was a girl. In the poem, he mentioned all the things that used to happen to him during the time he was heading the kettles. The poet has made use of a diction or a figurative language in his poem. We have a metaphor, an alliteration, and an onomatopoeia. I will explain to my learners that there are other figurative languages that one may find in a poem. It's just that in this one, these are the only ones that we can find. A metaphor directly compares two things to see how they are the same. Um, an example of a metaphor is in line 34. In the line that says a bone of anger blocking my breath, of which tell us that the poet is so angry and frustrated with the cake. He feels as if he is choking. It seems as if there is a bone stuck in his throat and he cannot breathe. Another example of a metaphor is in line 12, pebbles of water. These lines tell us that the water is hard when it pelts the boy. It feels heavy and hits him like red pebbles, of which means little stones. He feels like someone is as in like when someone throws little stones in your at your head. um Moving on to the second figure of speech, we have an alteration found in the poem. This is a word sound device when words share the same hard consonants, and usually at the beginning. The example of a consonant is in the poem is when the poet says, cry and curse. Those are the hard sounds that help us to imagine how desperate the boy felt when you curse. You say swear words to vent your frustrations. Another word that shows an alliteration is hooves hammering. These words help us to picture and hear the stampede of the kettle, the repetition of the H sound, copies or mimics the way their feet strike wet earth. It is a heavy, tense, freshening feeling or atmosphere. We also have an onomatopoeia. This is a word sound device when a word has an actual sound inside it. During the lesson, there are the questions that I will impose to learners in order to check their understanding of the poem. Some of the questions may include I will ask them who is telling events of these poems and how do they know? The learners may answer these questions differently depending on their understanding, but the expected answer will be the speaker is probably the poet. The poet is the one that is telling the poem. Mr. Masaimura Zimunya. He's the one who's telling the poem. Because we can see in the poem that he uses the first person narration. The words like I and we are used. So by using these words, we can infer that he was there and he is speaking about his personal experiences. That's why we can say he is the one who is telling this poem. The second question may be, where does this poem take place? This poem takes place in the pastures because it is where the boy used to herd the cattle. Yeah, we can say that it takes place in the pastures. And there is even lines that support the statement. In line 3, there is a statement that says in the pastures, so we can infer that the boy is with his cattle outside his village in the rural countryside. I will ask the learners if the poem takes place in the past, present, or the future. I will also ask them how is the narrator or the speaker feeling throughout the poem. In this question, they will be answering how they think the narrator was feeling when he was writing the poem, the mood and the tone of the poem. Does it remain the same in the whole poem or it changes? I will also ask them why the mood and the tone are important to understand these poems. So these questions that I will ask them will help in order to reflect to the lesson, to observe whether the lesson aims were met or not. Lastly, we will recap on the learning objectives and show the learners where they could develop their knowledge further. This is the stage. This is the part where I will check whether the objectives of the lesson were met or not, and I will allow an opportunity to ask the questions. We will be doing a consolidation of which is a revision of what we have learned about in the classroom. We will be discussing everything that we have learned about, checking if everyone has an understanding of what we have learned about. I will ask each and every learner what they have understood in the classroom. Then afterwards, I will give them a class activity to do and a homework to check their understanding. Then we will mark it on the following day. Thank you very much for paying attention to this presentation.